In 2015, more than 43 million caregivers provided unpaid care to an adult or child in the U.S., according to AARP. Whether it's caring for an aging parent or a child with disabilities, the daily responsibilities required of a caregiver can be extremely demanding, and not just physically but also mentally exhausting and draining. Dr. Santo D. Matabella is the author of the book Lessons of Caring: Inspiration and Support for Caregivers. Matabella is a part-time caregiver himself to his two senior parents.
My parents are 93 and 89. Dad has had Parkinson's for 17 years. My mom is on dialysis, end-stage renal dialysis. And so the number of health challenges, but again, it has been both a necessity and choice. And we've been very fortunate to have help in addition because I'm teaching or other projects working on.
While some families can afford professional in-home care, millions of people have to consider other options. For aging seniors, this can be moving into a nursing home, assisted care facility, or into a family member's house. Or if the person prefers to stay in their own home, it can sometimes mean loved ones divvying up caregiving tasks, or one person making it a full-time role altogether. Matabella says that whatever the case, being a caregiver to a loved one can be a long journey of ups and downs.
I think the first thing that struck me about this experience that I wanted to share was that the losses are many. You might not expect that not only do the loved ones that you're caring for have losses, whether it's independent and just perhaps physical or mental capacities, but also losses for you as a caregiver. You know, as we grow older, my parents are still around, and I'm blessed that they are, but they're not there. I lose them incrementally, I guess. And the other thing that comes with that is the sadness around that. And what happens is, what I've experienced is that if we don't acknowledge the losses, we get angry. And when we're angry, we're not really able to be who we want to be for our loved one.
Caring for a person is incredibly taxing. If a loved one has dementia or Alzheimer's, it can mean hours to just get them out of bed, into a shower, and clean. The person you once knew may be barely there and struggling with the most basic of tasks. And to see this decline firsthand can be frustrating.
This job of caregiving has a lot of moving parts. And so I think sometimes we can put ourselves into the job description of, what does this entail? What are we going to do? Sure, we're going to take care of them at home, but it's about respect, too. What do they need and what do they want? They're oftentimes what they want is different than what I might want as a caregiver.
These differing opinions can make caring for a person increasingly difficult, especially if there are multiple family members involved. Eric Stoll witnessed this firsthand while filming the documentary America, set in Colima, Mexico. Stoll is the co-director of the film and captures the story of three young brothers, Diego, Bruno, and Rodrigo, who all agree to come together after they learn that their ailing grandmother, named America, is the victim of elder neglect and has suffered an accident.
When I met America, she was 93 years old. She's from Mexico City, grew up in Mexico City, lived most of her life in Mexico City, was divorced at a young age, lived much of her life independently, worked for the city, traveled a lot, was a very independent woman for most of her life. But when I met her, she was 93 and was largely bedridden, living in Colima, first being taken care of by her only son, Luis, and then once he was imprisoned under accusations of neglect, then being cared for by her three grandsons.
Stoll traveled to Mexico and moved into the house with the family in Colima in order to shoot the documentary and learn the inner workings of the unique arrangement. During this time, he saw the different roles the brothers played, with Rodrigo working full-time to financially provide for all of the family, while Diego and Bruno mainly cared for America, often learning from her as well.
It was not only good for America, it was good for her health, it was good for her joy, her happiness, her quality of life, but that it really gave them something as well. I would frequently ask Diego, you're so young, you could be doing anything, you could be off of this circus, you could be doing this and that, you could be dating, this, all of these things. Why is this what you want to commit yourself to right now? And he would push back so forcefully on this idea. He would say, where does this idea come from that America takes so much from me, takes so much from us? She doesn't. She gives me as much as I give her. We give each other life.
The time Diego and Bruno spent with America allowed them to form a relationship they would have otherwise never had with her and learn new life skills.
One of the principal scene, biggest, most dramatic scene of the film is Bruno is walking America in a park, and she stops wanting to walk, right? She wants to sit down. And, very publicly in front of people in the park, Bruno is really kind of fighting with her to get her to stand up and to continue walking. Flash forward to 6 months or a year, and I saw a Bruno again who had a fluency with her similar to Diego, who really understood how to put her at ease when she would be in distress, perhaps related to her dementia.
The brothers absorbed America's wisdom and the lessons she gave from her own life. And in turn, she also seemed to be improving. But despite the living arrangement working out for a short period, Stoll says that eventually this distribution of work and lack of outside support started to chip away at the brothers' own relationship.
3 young men, able-bodied young men, without children, without major responsibilities, really willing to commit themselves to this, even under that ideal circumstance. The stresses of caregiving without robust and meaningful support in terms of, I would say, social and public support. Under those circumstances, the situation became untenable, and the stresses that the requirements of caregiving required ultimately tore the family apart.
Stoll says that one sticking point among the brothers was the valuation of care when it came to the distribution of finances.
In the initial months, whereas Rodrigo, the oldest brother, was the principal wage earner, and Diego dedicated himself to caring for America, that over time, that situation brought out resentment. There was an open question as to whether what Diego was doing counted as work. It was obvious that Rodrigo was working. He was going to a job every day. He was bringing home money. He was putting food on the table. Whereas Diego's work, caring for America, didn't come with a salary. He didn't have money. If he needed money, he had to ask Rodrigo for it. And over time, I think this kind of disparity in the way that we value different kinds of work, that work that gets money, right? We see, again, unambiguously, that's work, that's valuable, that's important. Whereas the caring labor Diego was providing was ultimately not valued in the same way.
This rift over finances, in addition to other issues, grew over time and led to a permanent falling out among the siblings.
It's been several years now since they left that house. Diego and Bruno took sole care of America, and now 2.5 years since America died. And I think lingering pain and frustration and grudges from that situation continue to linger in the family, and especially between the brothers.
This disintegrating relationship between the 3 brothers is not uncommon. It happens in many other families facing similar stressful situations. Dr. Santo D. Matabella says that more caregivers need to realize the toll this takes on a person.
Carve some time every day for you. And this is not new. I'm not the first person to say this. But in this context, this me time is so nurturing and so essential. And it's okay to ask for help. And I've become much better at that. And I hope folks listening will realize, too, that it's okay to ask for help, whether you're a man or a woman as a caregiver. Reach out. I started a social media, this private group where caregivers can just come and be and talk and get advice or get support or just vent.
Whether it's the person requiring care or the caregiver themselves, everyone needs some form of support. To find out more about this topic and our guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. This segment originally aired in October of 2019 and was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
Even if you're in a company where you're not being experimental, you can bet that one of your competitors is.
The different ways we work post-pandemic. Then,
if we can take control of the cues we send, if we know exactly what to do with our hands and our body and our face and our voice, that's actually a way that we can cultivate an authentic sense of charisma.
Recognizing the small cues that can make a big difference. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
That's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.